Welcome back to the Money and Wealth Show. I'm Sterling Fox in conversation this week with veteran British Columbia political analyst Rafe Mair. Rafe, let's take a look at the economics of all of this departure of Gordon Campbell, tax cuts, HST. The economy of British Columbia is, well, they say, in better shape than most places in Canada vis-a-vis the global recession. Is the Campbell government to take credit for that, or are we just flat out blind lucky in BC?
Well, first of all, if BC is better off than the others, that's damning with pretty faint praise because everybody else is in awful shape. I simply won't go along with that theory, Sterling, and I probably will get into trouble for this. But I'll just put it personally. About a year and a half before it really hit the fan on the stock market, my wife and I, just two ordinary everyday Canadians, looked around and said there's a lot of trouble out there. The U.S. owes far too much money. They owe it to China. We've got the loan scandal. We've got the mortgage scandal and so on. Something's going to happen on that stock market. Let's call our broker and take out the little bit we have as a nest egg and let's just put it in money. And that's exactly what we did. Now, if we could figure that out, I don't know why the finance ministry couldn't figure it out in Victoria. More than that, when I was in government 1,000 years ago, Hugh Curtis was then the finance minister. And he came to us in 1979 and he said, we're in trouble. And we're in trouble because all the indicators tell us that. Indicators that any minister of finance has, most of which is sales tax. When the sales tax starts to drop, you know very well something's happening. So I say the Campbell government is entitled to absolutely no credit whatsoever for that. They should have known, they should have seen it. If I could see it, if Hugh Curtis in his time could see it, with all the modern economic tools, computers at their command, they should have seen that. So they've gone, several $1 billion in the hole for that. And the second thing I'd remind people of is that they lied about it. They lied about it during the election campaign, and when they came back, whoopsie daisy, somehow we're $2 billion out. So I give them no credit for that. I think that we just got good and lucky.
You, as a former cabinet minister and a realist, you know that governments have very little means at their disposal by which to raise money, basically through taxes and fees, which are taxes by another name.
Yeah.
As the government of Canada and the government of British Columbia continues to rack up debt after debt after debt, it's inevitable that taxes have got to go up in order to offset the rising debts both at the national and provincial level. So tax cuts, while they certainly sound attractive, who isn't going to be in favor of a tax cut? It's got to be short-term, Rafe. There's got to be some nasty tax repercussions down the road for us all.
No question about that. That $500 or $600 million, it was, I suppose, a great thing to do for short term, as we mentioned before. But long term, it's just madness. You can't possibly bring your budget into shape, try to get your debt down and get your deficit down if you suddenly throw away $500 or $600 million. And you said that, and I think most people that think about it have said that. But I think Campbell has relied on the fact that usually people will accept a bribe with their own money. I rather suspect things have changed a little bit. I think this big sort of slump that we've been in has focused a lot of people's attention on things they didn't think of long ago. And I think they're more inclined now to put it in their own personal terms. If honey, we just decided to take a big holiday for a great amount of money, that would make us feel so much better we come back and earn more. And they say that, no, that doesn't work that way.
Right.
And I think that's what we're looking at here.
We've talked about a third party and the possibility of that happening in the wake of Mr. Campbell's resignation, but we do have a leadership review coming up fairly early in the new year. And looking over the list of potential successors to Mr. Campbell from within the government ranks, they've been doing some polling amongst voters in British Columbia, and there isn't anyone on the government side of the House that polls in even positive numbers. They're all double-digit negative numbers. That's not much of a talent pool, is it?
I'll tell you why that happens, Sterling, because people look at these people and say, either you just went along with the premier and didn't do what you're supposed to do, put brakes on it, or you're so damn dumb that you didn't know what the hell was going on. And I think they're in that kind of a crossfire. And you don't have anybody in there that looks like, well, they probably were aware and they really were trying hard to change the premier. There's nobody that looks like that. So I think that they've got very, very thin gruel indeed. And they've got a hard time getting, I think, any kind of a candidate. But out of the government, they can get a candidate. I mean, anybody would like to be premier instantly.
Sure.
But I don't think you'll find anybody that's going to actually do any good for the Liberals.
Well, let's talk about the three names that are most being bandied about as potential outside the government successors to Mr. Campbell. Surrey Mayor Diane Watts, Vanoc President John Furlong, and now the new Chancellor of Simon Fraser University, Carol Taylor, who seems pretty much out of it by virtue of having just taken that assignment at SFU.
I don't think she has any intention of going back, Sterling. I was at the swearing in of the new president not too long ago, and I saw Carol there. We didn't get any deep conversations, but I'm convinced that she would not have taken that job had she had any political ambitions. The other two have had virtually no serious political experience. Diane Watts has had some in Surrey, but I can tell you, having been a member of a city council, it's a hell of a long way from the council to being in the premier's office. And frankly, I don't think that John Furlong would want to bite at it. It's a tough job. He has no experience in this. He has had some personal problems at home, and I don't think he'd want to repeat them, because if anything is a graveyard for marriages, it's being in the cabinet of any government. And I don't think he needs it. I think he's probably done very well. He's, I'm sure, making good money now as it is, and I don't think he would feel any inclination to go. Now, I could be wrong. I have been once or twice before, but I don't think any of them. Diane Watts, that's an interesting story, because I would say there is probably the best potential person to come in to be the premier.
I agree.
But it's too soon.
Right.
It's too soon. She's got to have more experience than just riding through some good times, in Surrey on good news issues. And I think she probably knows that. She probably senses that. Because the downside is this: supposing she did become the leader and they just got creamed in the polls, now where is she? She's a leader of a busted party, probably another 8 years before they get back in business, and she's got to toil away as leader of the opposition. I don't think she's that kind of person.
She is certainly saying all the right things now. I'm happy doing my job as mayor of Surrey. I hope the folks in Surrey think I'm doing well. I plan to run again the next opportunity. But there's still a lot of talk about a draft Diane committee or campaign already forming.
She will have an enormous amount of pressure put upon her. There's no question about that. And she may buckle. As I've often said, somehow there's some dust goes into the eyes of politicians and they lose all sense of reality. I remember at the '86 Leadership Convention, the Socreds, one of the least likely to win, grabbed me on the day of the vote. I was doing a CKNW, covering for CKNW, and he grabbed me by the lapels and he said, Rafe, I'm going to come up the middle and I'm going to win this thing. And I said to my producer, what is it that gets into people's, this guy hasn't got a prayer. And he didn't have a prayer. I think he had 31 votes or 32 votes out of the 1,500 or 1,600 that were available. Mm-hmm. But there is something about it. It's one of the hardest things to avoid, is you start believing your own bullshit, and you start believing the people around you. And Bill Bennett, if I may just take a second, had something that I don't think that other leaders have had, and he should have. He had a feeling on the pulse, and his name was Alex Fraser. Mm-hmm. And whenever we got busy patting ourselves on the back in cabinet, telling us how much the people loved us and all the great good things we were doing, Bennett would look down at Fraser and he'd say, Axel, so what are they saying in downtown Quesnel about that? And he would say, well, Mr. Premier, they say that's a bunch of shit. We should be doing this, that, and the other thing. And we'd all slump back in our chairs. You mean those people we thought loved us don't love us at all? But he would bring us back to that reality. And I think that's one of the things that Campbell's been lacking. He doesn't listen very well, and he doesn't listen to the people that are, in his mind, below him intellectually, but actually have a very good pulse on what's going on out there. I think that's one of the biggest parts of his downfall.
Our guest this week on the Money and Wealth Show, veteran British Columbia political analyst and longtime colleague of mine, Rafe Mair. Lots more ahead. Please stay with us.
Hi, I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of Gold Ray Resources Corp. Our major project is in Shandong Province, China. It's a gold project with a 43101 resource. We're currently negotiating a $16.5 million US loan to take it into production at 1,500 tons per day. For more information, go to goldray.com or or phone me directly at 604-531-9639.